Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And Coach, you have to take the bad with the good, I guess. And so last Friday night, 28-14 loss to Cahokia, and I think, Cahokia is one of those teams that can sneak up on you and possibly beat you, which they did to the Wildcats. But I think there's a little bit of disappointment in the way the Wildcats performed in that game too.
Well, they're a good football team, and we had seen Cahokia on some film earlier from 3 previous games, and we were a little bit of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. There was one Cahokia team we saw that was very good and played extremely well and very disciplined. There was one that wasn't quite that way, and we weren't sure which one was going to show up. And Coach Galladay, quite frankly, said he didn't know which one would show up on a given evening. But we got the better team, and they came out. They had no turnovers. They had a few penalties, and they were very aggressive and flat out played us. We turned the ball over way too many times to come out with a win.
It's one of those games where, everyone says, well, Marion should win, but it goes back to something we've talked about before, and that's what is perceived to be early on as the balance in the South 7 Conference, and the fact that any of these teams, and we look now at probably 5 teams that could possibly qualify for the playoffs before the end of the year.
Well, there's no doubt that there's a lot of parity in the conference. I mean, it's we saw last year Mount Vernon pull off a late season upset of Carbondale, and from any given week, anybody can beat anybody in this conference. I really believe that. I think no one took Cahokia lightly. We have a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Galladay and the success that they've had over the last several years, the last 20 years probably. But we just turned the ball over too many times, and any time in our conference when you commit that many turnovers, you're not going to win. And bottom line is we got to take better care of the ball. I thought our kids played hard, but we didn't play that well, and there's a huge difference.
I think you have to say something different than the first 3. In the first 3 weeks, obviously the offense was pretty much clicking on all cylinders. The defense played pretty well. They were put in some tough situations, gave up the one big score and some other things like that, but the defense, I would say, clearly outplayed the offense in Friday's game.
They did. They absolutely did. And they kept the score from being worse than it could have been. Well, the offense put them in some really bad situations. We turned the ball over in the red zone. We also turned the ball over deep in our own territory and threw a pick that led to I think a 1 or 2 play drive. So we didn't help our defense out. We stole a possession at the beginning of the game with an onside kick, but we gave 6 turnovers to them, giving them more possessions than they should have had, and our defense still held them to just 4 scores, and it could have been a lot worse, but our defense did play very well.
Early on this week, how's practice gone? What have the kids taken from that game?
Well, I think we've tried to learn from that game and then put it behind us and focus on the next ball game. There's no time in our conference with our schedule to worry about Cahokia anymore. We got to learn from it, but we got to move on. And I think our kids came out Saturday after the film, and we learned some things from it. We've tried to make some adjustments in practice to dealing with things that we didn't do well, and we could practice. Monday and Tuesday have been very good, and we're looking to finish up the week of practice. And I can't complain about the way they bounced back. This is a get back up week, as we call it. We've been knocked down. Great teams, good teams, got to get back up and play again.
After the game, you talked about the 6 turnovers, which were interceptions, and Matt Lewis tried to shoulder a lot of the blame for that. But as you look at the game and look back, and this is something we saw during the game, there were a lot of times where a ball was thrown to a spot where we thought it should be. There were some times when balls went right through receivers' hands and things like that. Different things, that execution across the board on the offensive side that really, admirable for Matt to take the blame. Probably not as much his fault as he thought it was.
It never is. I mean, a touchdown pass, quarterbacks get a lot of credit for, but there's always a catch and there's protection and there's a lot of things that go into the success of that touchdown pass that's not just the quarterback. Well, interceptions are the same way. A lot of times quarterbacks shoulder the blame for interceptions, much like they gain the success of a touchdown, but it's not just the quarterback. You're right. We had some misread wristbands that led to bad routes and receivers not where they were. And then there's a couple of interceptions that were just flat Matt's fault. They were errant throws that he shouldn't have made. But it isn't just Matt Lewis that needed fixing at practice. It was a number of things that we feel like were very fixable, and some adjustments in personnel, some adjustments in the game plan, adjustments to what we work on every day that I think will help correct some of that.
Your chance to redeem yourself is this Friday, home game against Mount Vernon, and Mount Vernon has struggled the last couple of years, but as you said, last year late in the season, they got that surprise win over Carbondale.
Right.
They had a chance to fold up the tents last week against Althoff, got behind really big, played strong and solid in the second half, and a game that could have easily been a running clock early in the third quarter never turned out that way because they picked up a couple of scores and battled. So it's a team that's not going to roll over, and then there's a little bit of that rivalry factor between Marion and Carbondale.
There is, and it's
Mount Vernon, rather. I'm sorry.
It's a tribute to Coach Shaner. I mean, I think he's rebuilding a program there, and he's done a nice job keeping his kids, their heads in the game. They're playing hard, even when the success isn't coming. You watch the film, they've not quit. They're still playing hard. They're still working. They're still battling, and that's a tribute to their head coach. He's going to do a nice job there, and I think, as I said, we take each one of these conference games just like any other. This is no different than Cahokia or Centray or Carbondale or anybody else. We know we've got to step up and play well to win.
I don't know if it's been so much this year. I know last year at one point they had 15 or 17 of their 22 starters that were out because of injury.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, takes a toll mentally on a team. And I think that kind of a mental toll can carry over the next year because you don't know, man, am I going to get hurt again? What's going to happen? How do you deal with a situation like that? I mean, you've had injuries to key players, but I don't think on such a great scale.
Yeah, they really had a rough year in dealing with the number of injuries like that. And that is tough, as you said, not only physically for your team's performance, but I think you're right, psychologically. And I think there's a confidence level. You know, Deion Sanders once gave a great quote that said, hope dictates effort. And the effort of a player or a team is often dictated by the belief they have, the hope they have that they're going to have a great year or a great game. When you take several starters out of the lineup, it diminishes that amount of hope they have that they can win this ball game, and that affects the effort that you give. And so as a head coach or an assistant coach, when you're dealing with a position or a team, you know, you've got to still be successful even with these kids out, but sometimes it's a tough sell, especially if those kids that are missing are leaders.
Has traditionally been a running team.
Yes.
I think this year their quarterback is one of their most athletic players, and I think a lot of their offense centers around him. Talk about what you expect out of this game on Friday.
Well, yeah, I don't think he'll deviate from what he does, and I think that's the mark of a coach that's going to build a program is that even though things haven't gone exactly the way he had hoped in the first 4 games, he's going to stick to his game plan. He has an offensive and defensive philosophy. I believe he'll stick to it. What makes them dangerous is that they have some kids that can make plays. They had a receiver last year that was an outstanding receiver, made plays, and I think they have more of those kind of kids. They have some defensive kids, 2 down tackles that I think are outstanding. They got a linebacker and a secondary player I love, and they've got some kids that are going to go out, play hard, and make plays because that's what Mount Vernon kids do. And they're waiting on someone to not have their best night. They're waiting on someone to look past them. And when that happens, they're going to get a win. They're going to get more than one. And there can be a turning point for a team. As I said, everybody's in it right now. After one conference game, everybody's still in it. And I'm sure Coach Shaner's preaching to his kids, it's not too late for us to get on track.
Last year in this game up there, game that was delayed from Friday night to Saturday, when your team came out, you went down and scored right away. Mount Vernon came and answered. And then Mount Vernon had the ball deep in your territory with a chance to take the lead late in the first quarter. You forced a fumble and turned it into points, and then were able to take control of the game. But it's that much, just the difference is that
right.
little in what could have turned out to be a very disastrous game last year. I think everyone would have to agree that Mount Vernon may be a little better, even though their record is still 0-4. They're maybe a little bit better than they were last year.
I agree with you. I think Coach Shaner would probably say, and I hate to speak for him, but I think he would probably say that a lot of the lack of success they've had have come from self-inflicted wounds. I mean, they've stopped themselves. And at some point in time, they're going to quit doing that. As they grow as a team and they grow into his philosophy, they're going to quit doing that. And when they quit doing that, they're going to start winning ball games and being even more competitive. And so that's what I watch them on film. A lot of what they're doing, teams aren't stopping them, they're stopping themselves. And so that's something I'm sure he looks at as fixable. And I'm sure they're working very hard to minimize those mistakes. And for our case, we just hope they don't start doing that too much on Friday. And we got to continue to play our game and make plays and play good defense and get that turnover ratio back in our favor.
Is this similar to what you saw from, say, Marion back in the 2003, 2004, 2005 timeframe and Centralia over the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Is how you stick to that plan. It looks bad early. It starts to get a little bit better, and you're at that. There comes a point in that rebuilding process where you're so close to turning the corner and just not quite there yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's a fine line between sometimes success and failure. People think sometimes the dividing line is this wide chasm, you know. It isn't always that way. When you watch certain teams on film, yeah, they are a long way from being successful, but other teams are just on that brink, and it's going to take a player or two, it's going to take a play or two to get them to turn the corner. And so I think they're getting to that point, that tipping point, where they've got a class of freshmen, I understand, coming through that's going to be very strong, and while he's doing that, he's developing his younger players. And so you know, South 7 has to watch out, because once again, another up-and-coming team in our conference, and it's just going to get tougher.
Friday's game takes on a little bit different meaning for people in Marion and around the area that are watching the game. It's your second annual Pink Out game,
right? And
you're doing a lot of things similar to last year with the pink T-shirts for the fans and things like that. A little bit of a new twist with the uniforms this year. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, the community, parents and fans and community members have been able to sponsor a jersey for $75, a minimum of $75 for a player to wear on the field during the game. It's a navy jersey with pink numbers, and they can choose to put a name on the back of a cancer survivor or cancer victim. So, for example, I purchased one from one of our players. I'm sponsoring Jawan Tucker's jersey. My father's name is on the back, who was a victim of lung cancer. And so Jawan will be playing in that jersey with my father's name on the back, and when the game's over, he'll present that jersey to me. He's going to play in it and then present it to me, the sponsor. And we've sold well over 100 jerseys. We'll have it, the entire team dressed, varsity through freshman team, plus the entire cheerleading squad will be dressed out in jerseys. And there'll be a presentation after the game giving those jerseys away to the families that sponsored them. So there's a lot of sentimental value involved in this game. It's a chance for our kids to see the game beyond the game itself, that there are more important things than high school football. Though you and I talk about it every week and it's a big deal and it's my job, there's other issues. And for our kids, it's nice to see high school football placed in some type of other perspective. And we're going to get a chance this week to play the game and play it for what it is, but also have in the back of our minds that there are other issues, bigger issues, more important things than high school football. And we're going to get a chance to give back a little bit, present some of the proceeds to Fran Walker and Marilyn Eisman, two district employees and amazing women and teachers who are both battling cancer. And it's our chance to maybe give back and to help them a little bit.
Last year, the beneficiary of the effort was Marilyn Eisman, and I know she was greatly appreciative. And so, you know, it's those kind of things that you can mix the community event and really step out and help someone in the community.
Yeah, it's good to see the kids be a part of this, understanding that, you know, we receive a lot. We get a lot of write-ups, and we get interviews, and we get uniforms, and we get meals made for us. But it's a chance for our players to take the game, and instead of receiving all the time, to give back. And we're looking for more and more opportunities. Our kids do quite a few community service projects, and this is one we were able to tie very closely into with the game. And Holly Boyd has been a huge help to us in this whole process and doing a lot of the paperwork end of it for us and organizing this. But we're excited about it. It's going to add an extra incentive to the ball game and help us play a little bit above the game.
All right, Coach, thanks a lot for your time. We'll see you Friday night. Good luck to the Wildcats.
Sounds good.
For Dateline Marion, this is Tim Petrowich with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. Back next